But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming. My name's Ben. I have a daughter who had received a very, very traumatic brain injury, a non-anoxic injury, 8 years ago. And so, that experience, horrible, but I didn't realize, we entered into this naively, kind of thinking people would help us, and we kind of had a really naive approach to home health care. And it really hurt us for several years. So it made our bad situation even worse with the home health care. So can y'all tell me what's your situations in terms of home health care? Do you guys have home health care? So don't have home health care? Can be have home health care?
Yeah.
So you...
She doesn't qualify for nursing, but she has like a full-time caregiver.
Okay. How's it been so far?
Well, we had one person before her, and she was younger, and she called off a lot.
Right.
She like last minute, and my husband and I work from home, but still, that's hard. So
right.
A lot of call-offs, and then she quit.
Right.
Moved, and now we have someone who's very nice, loves my daughter.
Right.
She's 3.5, but she's just kind of overwhelmed with everything that needs to be done. She wants to help her. She cries a lot, like to me about it, and like so that's new. So anyways, it's just she cares a lot, but she's overwhelmed, wants to help, and if I'm not talkative first thing in the morning, she thinks I'm mad at her, like that kind of thing. So it's just different having someone in your house and like having to act. I don't know.
Yeah, I completely understand. And what was your name again, sir?
Yeah. Eddie.
Eddie. And Eddie, so what is your experience so far with home health?
Good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah.
So we had like the good phase where we had coverage for probably 80% of the time. Some really great nurses.
The company's presentation is that it's the best of the best, and then the transition went on to.
Yeah, so we had some really great nurses. They presented their like my wife said, they presented their best. That was just filling in. And as we were going through the process, a lot of them had some that fell asleep.
Right.
Some that thought it was just, like I was just going to be bedridden, and that's all they were going to do was sit in a
right.
bed. So
right.
Very different for me when you say home health care and they're like supposed to be nurses. They were really like babysitters, and that really wasn't what we were looking
right. for. Yeah, okay. So that's, I think that the experience is that's the universal experience. Like I said, good, bad, indifferent. Yeah. That's the norm. And then also shortage. So like crisis level shortage, and then the nursing support you get will be good, bad, indifferent.
Correct.
So that's consistent across probably the whole country, I'm sure. And some places a little bit easier, some places a little bit worse. But I lived in a remote area. It was really bad. Now we live in a major city, and I know people that have gone 6, 7, 8, 9 months without any kind of support at all.
I wanted to say my daughter's 5 and totally dependent of us and everything, but I also have 5 kids altogether. So I haven't got home health nursing because it was kind of like I was going to have more people under my feet. And my boys are almost 17 and 18, my older ones, but I have a 2-year-old as well. So it just kind of just seemed like it was too much to bring somebody else in to me, but I need the help now, and I was going to have my mom get paid to come and watch her, but she's not always reliable either. So it's just going to be new for me to accept that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you guys came. Like I said, this for us was just such a point of pain, frustration, anger, on top of the tragedy of our child being devastated. This was a whole another assault, but it was by the professionals we thought would help us, and that's what made it so terrible. It's because we had this naive approach, and then we just got crushed. And it was really our own ignorance. So that's kind of what I want to share. I did write a book, and it's available for free on the Team Luke website. If you go to the resources tab, just look for Strangers in Your Home, and it's free. It's not super long or super hard to read. I don't try to, I try to write in a way that people communicate. But feel free to download that book. I encourage you to look at it because there's several sections I don't have time to go into. The first section is safety. So I just encourage you to look at that. The book, again, it's free. You can download it 100% free. And I would honestly take a look at it. And then you can email me as well if you want to talk. I'm willing to work with you one-on-one for free. Is absolutely no charge. But if you just want to sit and if you have questions. But essentially what you want to have is a safe environment, which I'm not going to cover safety now. What I'm going to cover now is how to attract nurses, hire nurses, and then how do you keep nurses? Because there's an incredibly high turnover rate among nurses. So it's incredibly high. I mean, statistically, your nurses will only stay on average a few months. Occasionally you'll get some that will stay longer, but typically it's a really short relationship. And the relationship is kind of like a marriage. And so we'll talk about that briefly. So first, how do you attract and hire the right nurse? So you're going to have effective meet and greet, which we'll talk about, and making an environment, make sure it's an environment they're comfortable working in, and then make sure it's an environment that's professional and convenient for them. So essentially, you're going to turn your home into, you want to make it as professional as possible in terms of its setting, and we'll talk about the meet and greet now. So when you have a meet and greet, a lot of times they're really not effective. So the meet and greet, if you don't know, that's when the nurse comes over and you talk and you kind of see if you're a good fit for each other. But you often only have one, and you have to make sure it's effective or it's a waste of time. So the first thing is you want to communicate with your home health agency, and you need to let them know what you're looking for. They should kind of know you and just be honest about what you're looking for, some of the things that are kind of red lines for you, and let them know where your flexibility is in terms of just generally speaking what you're looking for. It's good to be honest and upfront with your home health agency. And then next, when you have that meet and greet and the nurse comes over to your home, I'm just going to use the pronoun she because all of our nurses have been female because my daughter's a young lady, and so we wouldn't want a man to care for her. So I'll just say she, although of course there's some great home health nurses that are men. But when that nurse comes over, you need to be very honest and open about what the work environment will be like, because she's checking you out. It's like a date. It's like a first date. And so you don't want to fool your nurse. So if you have dogs, if there's smoking, if whatever the situation is, she needs to be very clear. Like, don't hide things from your nurse. And then you also need to be clear if there's certain things that are kind of red lines for you, then be clear about that. So for me and my wife, for instance, really don't like it if a nurse is on her phone during the shift. Like, that just gets under our skin. If that's something for you that gets under your skin, then let them know that. And which your home health agency has a policy that says they can't do that. But if that's something that's important to you, you should reinforce that. So whatever your red lines are, don't make 50 of them because you won't hire any nurse. But whatever your wherever you draw a line in the sand, and again, we're going to talk about don't have too many of those. But whatever it is, be honest and upfront about that. Be honest and upfront about the schedule. Do you go outside? Do you have lots of appointments? Just whatever the environment is, just be very clear and honest about it. And next, nurses usually don't communicate very well at all, ever, at any point in the relationship. So at the meet and greet, you really need to pull out from the nurse. What are you really looking for in a case? Why did you leave your last case? What didn't you like about that? What are you really hoping for? Hey, coming in. Hey guys, glad you made it, coming in. Yeah, thanks for coming. Glad you made it. Yeah, glad you made it. So I'm just talking again. My name's Ben Cockerman, and I have a daughter that was, really devastated by brain injury. We've had home health care for 8 years now, and I was just saying that was just one of the worst aspects of it. I didn't realize it's kind of insult to injury is kind of what happened. So we're at the part where we're talking about the meet and greet, and the first step is just to be very honest and clear. Hey guys, glad you made it. So nice to see you. Yadviga, right? Nice to see you. So discuss, you want to pull from your nurse her concerns. So you have to ask her. You have to pull it from her. She won't tell you. So you have to say, what are you looking for? What are your concerns? What kind of environments do you like? Tell me about a time you worked with a family that you really liked. Tell me about a time you worked with a family that you really didn't like. You have to pull that from her. Consciously, actively pull her personality and what she's looking for. And again, she won't offer it. You have to pull that from her. So you need to know what she's looking for so you can see if you can accommodate her or not. And then finally, you need to listen to hesitancy on the meet and greet. So if your nurse expresses any kind of serious concerns, so if she says, oh, this is a lot further away than I thought, or oh, the patient, I thought it was a little child. I didn't realize how big your son is. Or I didn't realize you had this situation. If you hear any serious concerns, honestly, I probably wouldn't move forward. If it's something that you can't adjust, something you can't change, I probably would just stop right there. Because what we found is, your nurse, even in her mind, she's trying to decide if she wants to take the case. And so in her mind, she says, you know what? Well, they seem like a nice family. I really thought that they lived in a different spot. I really thought it would be more like this. But they seem like a nice family. I think I'll stay. But what's going to happen is as the weeks go by, she's going to say, I really didn't want this type of case. This isn't what they told me. This isn't what I thought. This isn't the shift I thought I was going to have. And then she'll leave. So listen for any serious concerns. And if she expresses any is probably not going to work out. So, okay, so next, again, so it's kind of like a relationship, kind of like a dating relationship. And I also think about it kind of like when you're trying to sell a house. If you're trying to sell a house, we're looking, there's a shortage of nurses. So we want to attract the right nurses and keep the right nurses. And it's really a competition. Remember, there's no shortage of families that need home health care, but there's a critical crisis shortage of nurses who are available to provide that care. So essentially, you're competing with the case a few miles up the road to attract and keep the right nurses. And so part of what you do is you create, well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. This is still in the screening part, but when the nurse comes over, when you're still kind of screening her in the kind of like the dating phase, you really want to make sure that there's compatibility between the two of you. And I thought initially, well, nurses are professionals, and I just want someone to take care of my daughter. I'm okay if we're completely not the same type of people. Like, I'm not actually dating this person. It's okay if we're radically different. As long as she provides good care, that's all I care about. But that's actually a naive approach. That's not going to work. The reality is, now there are exceptions, but generally speaking, your nurse has to be comfortable in your home. She has to be comfortable with you. And if she's not, she's probably going to leave. Again, I'm talking about how do you retain the right nurses. Part of it is you hire a nurse that's compatible in the first place, kind of like a marriage. How do you make a marriage last? Well, part of it is marrying the right person. So there's worldview compatibility. Again, I thought, you know what? It shouldn't matter. You're a professional, and I just need professional care. But the reality is your nurse wants to be comfortable in your home. If there's drastic worldview differences, you may be okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm a teacher, and I'm okay with different people. I like diversity. But the reality is, if your nurse isn't comfortable in your home environment, and she's not comfortable with you as a person, she's probably going to leave. So again, I personally just wouldn't hire anyone that's radically different. We used to do it, and it just didn't last. And that's, so I'm kind of speaking from experience. Another thing is your family atmosphere. So what's your home atmosphere like? Do you like loud music all the time? Do you smoke? Do you have lots of dogs and animals? Do you have little kids that are constantly running around the house? Some nurses love that, and some nurses hate that. So you need to find out if your nurse is comfortable with the physical environment, the family atmosphere. You just need to see if it's a good fit, and you have to do that by asking and communicating. And again, if it's not a good fit, it's probably not going to last, and you're really wasting your time. We need to reduce turnover. Don't think, well, I know it's not going to last, but I'll keep this nurse for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then I'll just get another nurse. That's really the wrong approach. Like, again, with a marriage, you should say, I want to find the right person who's going to stay as long as possible, provide the best care possible. I would rather wait weeks or even months for the right nurse who's going to stay than have constant turnover. Constant turnover will stress you out. It makes the whole situation worse. Next, again, you're trying to attract nurses. And so I think about, like, when you show a house, if you're selling a house, you do put the best foot forward. But for more reason than one, but initially just to attract a nurse. You want to give her a home that just looks appealing. Give her a workspace that looks appealing. A lot of times I've been in homes and they just still feel like there's a hospital bed in the middle of a living room. And it just feels like the middle of a living room with a hospital bed. It doesn't need to look or feel like that. It should feel like a professional work environment as much as possible. Make your nurses comfortable. And this, again, you want to attract nurses, but you want to keep nurses. So the simplest thing in the world is temperature. So everybody's different. We're all different. Some people run hot, some people run cold. Give your nurse the ability to make herself comfortable in terms of temperature. So at the minimum, she needs to have a fan. She should have her own personal heater. She won't adjust your thermostat, but if she's always hot, she'll leave. If she's always cold, she'll leave. But she won't adjust your thermostat, so you have to give her the ability to regulate the room temperature. So give her a fan. You can have a floor air conditioner. We've had those as well. There's this little device where it's a fan that blows over a tray full of ice cubes. Well, that's what we're using right now for a nurse. A small heater. Make sure your nurse has the ability to make her room temperature comfortable. Make sure she has a nice office chair, a nice chair. You can find a used one for $25 off of Facebook, or you can spend a couple $100 or $100 or so from one of the office stores. But she needs a nice, comfortable chair. She's going to sit in it most of the day. Make sure it's nice and comfortable and fits her. Also, give her a nice desk. So give her a desk that's her desk. For her notes, for her things, for her purse, for whatever she has, give her a working space. It shouldn't be cluttered with your stuff and her stuff. Give her a desk. It's kind of a sacrifice for you, but I wouldn't dual purpose the desk. Give her a working desk. Next, make sure it's clean. So make sure if you're sharing a bathroom with her, make sure her bathroom is clean. Just give her a clean, nice working place. That goes a long way, and it's simple. And finally, this is kind of, nurses, in terms of their physical space, they often want to be left alone and they want a peaceful environment. So I would just encourage you, most nurses are like that, not all, but give them a peaceful space, give them physical space. They like that, and that if you want to keep your nurse, that's what you need to do. So in addition to those aspects we talked about, there's kind of just, remember, it's a working environment for your nurse, and you want to make it convenient. You want to support her, and it has to do with her safety and her convenience just for working. For starters, give her a place to park. Like, you want her to come to work. Don't give her unnecessary stress. So give her a place to park. Your nurse shouldn't have to fish or park in some odd spot. Make sure, again, you need to accommodate your nurse. That's kind of what I'm talking about. There's areas we can't compromise, but 90% of things we can compromise. And I'm going to recommend that you do that in an intelligent way. So give her a place to park. Make sure that the workspace is really organized and predictable. So by organized, I mean, step back. I mean, is there adequate shelving? Is there adequate, are you communicating with a 24-hour schedule? Do you have a dry erase board where you communicate? Is it nice and neat? Is it easy to get to? Do you have adequate storage for everything? Is it organized? Make it a place where it's easy for nurses to come in and do their job. And also support predictability. What I mean by that is nurses have schedules and routines. Just, of course, they have a plan of care, but they have a personal schedule and a way they like to do things. Every nurse will have their own way, and you need to support that and protect it. So just try to have predictability, because that just leads to comfort, which leads to them staying longer. A simple thing is an electric hospital bed. Typically, most insurance companies pay for a really cheap brown hospital bed. I would highly encourage you, I would highly encourage you to buy a used medical hospital bed. But if you can't do that for some reason, I would say you can get risers for those beds, and it will raise, those beds are too low, and it will bring the bed up, and it won't hurt your back, it won't hurt your nurse's back. So I encourage you to get an electric hospital bed, but if you have to have the kind of crummy one that insurance companies provide, at least get it off the ground higher. You can use wooden blocks, and there's other little risers that you can buy. So at least just raise that bed up. But if you can afford to get a used hospital bed, just get one. You can use it as long as you need it. You can resell it. They last forever. We've had several beds. None of them have broke. They've all been very reliable. And then make sure that you have a lift that's easy to get to. Your nurse shouldn't have to fight to find the lift. They shouldn't have to move tons of things to get to the lift, because then they may not use the lift and they may hurt themselves. Or they'll just be like, you know what, I can't get to the lift and I can't lift the patient, I'm just going to leave. So you don't do that. Hey, glad you guys made it. Come in. Oh, you're fine. Glad you made it. We're really just talking about how do you attract nurses in the first place? How do you get them to come to your home? Because again, we're competing for good nurses. So how do you attract nurses, and then how do you keep them once you have them? And again, I have a book. It's on Team Luke's website under the resources tab. It's free. You can download it. I encourage you to look at that, because there's many sections that I'm not going to cover, such as safety and conflict resolution, things like that. So I encourage you to, if you have home health care nursing and you don't feel like you're super competent at it, I would definitely read the book. And feel free to email me. If any of you in here, anyone that's associated with Team Luke, I'd gladly talk to you for free. I've worked with other parents. And we can just talk in the evenings. We can arrange a time, and I can just share what I know based on researching, talking to experts, and our experiences, talking to parents, and just to help you guys to just have a positive experience, because this can be an area that can just make a horrible situation worse. When you think like your life can't get worse, your home health nurses, they can make it much worse, like much worse. So I'm speaking from years of pain, agony, frustration, anger, until we finally learned how we deal with home health nurses. I was super bitter when I wrote the book, and I had to slowly edit things out. I mean, I had profanity in there, and I had an editor. She didn't know me, and she would keep changing things. Like, no, that's what I said. And so, you see me now, like, oh, this guy, he seems like no, I was really bitter and angry for years. Like, I had to kind of come to a point of saying, okay, I'm not going to fantasize about killing people anymore. I was doing that. That's where I was at, just being honest. And I kind of came to that point, like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. They tried to hurt me. They did hurt me, and I'm not going to let them hurt me anymore. I'm going to move on. So this is me having moved on. But yeah, we went through a lot. Okay, so Another thing is just shift availability and flexibility. So I'd share, one time we had a great nurse, I'll call her Tammy. She was a really good nurse. She would just do therapy without us asking. She took initiative, and she was a good, solid nurse. But she had to leave early because she had to pick up her children, and she would never work on weekends. And again, we were very naive. So we thought, you know what, we really want weekends covered at some point. We really wish the nurse could stay later. So we switched companies, left Tammy in that company. Guess what? I don't know, 6 years later, no one's ever covered weekends. We should have stayed with her. So you need to be flexible. If you find a good nurse, you just need to be flexible, period. If, within reason, that's what I say. There's areas we're not flexible in. There's areas we will not sleep, but we won't tolerate. But that's 10%. The 90%, you need to be flexible as a parent. Another small thing, make sure your nurse has a personal refrigerator. And I encourage you to be smoker friendly. I don't smoke. I don't like vaping. I don't like smoking. But when it comes to a good nurse, we're okay with them smoking or vaping outside. That's us personally, but I can say we've had a lot of great nurses that vaped, and I'm okay with that if they're doing it outside. That's my personal opinion, but again, it's about being flexible, a flexible mindset. This is a quick kind of just overview, but essentially we talked about, and we have another section we're going to get into. I think we're out of time. We're almost, how much time do we have? Yeah, we're almost out of time. Okay, so we have a few minutes. I'll try to. But essentially, when you have the meet and greet, be very open and honest with your nurse about what the environment is. Don't hide things, and just be very clear and open and honest. It's kind of like a marriage. It's a relationship. So be open and honest, but then you have to pull information from her to find out what she needs, what her concerns are, things like that. And then just make an environment that is attractive. It should be an environment she walks in and she thinks oh, this is a nice place. These people are intelligent. They did this. Oh, these people know what they're doing. They're competent, and they've made a space that's a professional working environment. All right. Next, we're talking about reducing turnover. And, the first aspect I would say is you need to take care of yourself. And this is a really tough thing. That's you're I'm going to say things and you're going to think, that's not possible. Because our priority is for our children. So how do you take care of yourself when your child is the priority? It's super, super tough to do. I'd say, so we're going to talk about taking care of yourself first, making memorable events, and having a positive and professional atmosphere. So again, every time we get on an airplane, what's the first message? The first message is, if there's a catastrophe, you have to put your mask on first. As parents, this is contrary to our nature. But again, like I told you, I was angry and really bitter for years. And how many nurses do you think I drove away? I don't know. If you have a calculator and you're really good at math, you could probably figure it out. But I promise, I would drive nurses away without speaking. I was angry and bitter. And again, you just make the situation worse. You have to take care of yourself. So you have to take care of yourself physically if possible. Again, we've gone years without sufficient sleep. My wife wakes up at 3:30 every single day. On occasion, I'll do it once on a weekend, so I can tell my wife, oh, get enough sleep. But you have to do your best. Can you take naps? Can you do stuff? Essentially, though, you can't become a patient yourself, not physically and not emotionally. So I just really encourage you, you need to seek professional support. So if you have a loved one, you should have counseling, you should take walks, any kind of therapy, prayer, meditation, yoga. You need to take care of yourself. If you become angry, bitter, and hostile, you will make the situation worse. Okay, because as bad as your situation is, as bad as our situations are, they can get worse. And that's what we experienced. We experienced worse. And I thought, how could our lives be worse? Oh, guess what? There's a way. People will help. All right. Next, okay, so you want to make a stockpile of positive emotions with your nurse. Okay, this is super, super important. So we had a nurse, I'll call her again Tammy. Her name wasn't Tammy, but call her Tammy. Tammy was crazy. So let me illustrate this. So we moved into a new home. We had a new home built a few years after my daughter was hurt. And it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And Tammy was in our daughter's room. I was just going to say goodnight. She says, the toilet is clogged. I need you to get the plunger. I said, the plunger is at my old house. I'm not going to drive to go get it right now. We're just going to have a plugged toilet for the night. Tammy looked at me like I was a wimp, and she put on a clear plastic glove, and she snapped it, and she unclogged the toilet with her hand. So imagine working with that kind of person. So one evening, it was Tammy's birthday. We were out at night, and I was like, you know what? It's Tammy's birthday. Let's go get some hamburgers and stuff like that. So we bought some burgers and told her happy birthday, things like that. And then a few months later, I was trying to sleep on the couch, and I couldn't get sleep. I was trying to sleep on the couch, and I heard her talking to my daughter, and Tammy said, you know, I would have left this case a long time ago, but on my birthday, your parents bought me some food, and that means a lot to me. I was like, oh my God. But I would say make those, like consciously, again, you're trying to keep your nurse. Your nurse is constantly being solicited to leave, okay? So we had a nurse, and she showed me her email, her inbox. She received approximately 30 emails a day from recruiters, 30 a day, from different recruiters trying to get her to leave, okay? They're constantly being pulled, badgered, enticed, incentivized to leave. So you have to incentivize them to stay in a good, or like a really, this is better for you, it's better for your family, but you have to consciously plan good events. So plan potlucks, do stuff for her birthday. For the holidays, like us, we're like, who cares about the holidays? I don't care about holidays anymore. We're just so upset. But don't do that. You have to keep a positive environment so you make memorable events. So have potlucks, there's a nurses week. Honestly, consider giving we've done this, we've given our nurses' children birthday cards. It's a small thing, but it means a lot. You're trying to make memorable events. Again, for lunch, why don't you go pick up your nurse, pick her up lunch? Just offer to do it. Just be considerate and make memorable, positive events with your nurse. Mother's Day, mention that as well. All right, next thing is, this is super, super important. This is where I've really struggled, but just making a positive atmosphere. So there's really two parts. We'll talk about a flexible mindset first, since I already kind of talked about it. But a flexible mindset is one in which you are prioritizing someone else's needs as opposed to yours. And as a parent with a child that's very needy, I prioritize my daughter's needs. But you can't really, that's not the complete right approach. You can't live in a vacuum. Like my wife and I, like what we do, we shut out our other kids, we shut out our marriage, we shut out everything. And it was all about caring for our child that had to have 24-hour care. But again, just as that's unhealthy for your other children, it's unhealthy for your marriage, it's unhealthy for all your relationships and working with your home health nurses. So have a flexible mindset and default to what someone else needs instead of your own. Because again, I'm not a flexible person. I have 4 of the exact same shirt, and I bought 2 recently, and I touched them, and I was like, that one's different. And I looked, it's like one's made in Bangladesh, one's made in Vietnam. I'm like, I don't know if I like that. So I'm not a flexible person, all right? But you have to have a flexible mindset. Another thing is just with gratitude, and again, this is difficult, but like I also was in the military. That's also not a good thing. So you don't want to be an authoritarian figure. You want to be more of a hero. And what I mean by that is you should be an overcomer. Your nurse should view you as someone who's positive, someone who's an overcomer. They shouldn't view you as an angry, hostile, bitter tyrant. So that's just not a good way to live life, and it's not good for your nurses. Let me see if I want to add anything else. Just part of gratitude is just, look for reasons to be thankful. Acknowledge your nurse. I mean, my attitude is, again, a kind of a military background, and it's if you're doing your job, you shouldn't get a pat on your back. You're doing your job, you're professional. What do you want? Do you want a cookie because you did your job? That's my attitude. That's the wrong attitude because, again, you're working with people. Nurses have problems and needs and fears just like we do. So extend your humanity beyond the care for your child and extend your humanity to the nurse just as another human being. And just be gratitude. When they do something, just acknowledge it. Say, I appreciate how you did that. Thank you for always coming to work on time. Thanks for always keeping my daughter on schedule. I know I have trouble doing that. Just have gratitude and acknowledge your nurse. I think this is the last part, and then we'll call it quits. But this is huge, is maintain a professional environment. So initially we thought when a nurse comes and they're coming to our home, we appreciate it so much. They're caring for my daughter, who I love more than anything in the world. And you know what? I'm just going to view them as like appreciation, and they're part of the family, and I'm just going to be as kind and loving as I can. That is a horribly dangerous, terrible idea. Never, never, never do that. And we'll talk about it briefly. I'll just tell you a quick story. We'll call this nurse Tina. Tina was a really good nurse, and she was really friendly. She was warm. She was really good to my daughter. She treated my daughter like a person, which meant a lot to me. And because of that, again, and we were new, we really let our guard down. So, we let Tina, sometimes she brought her daughter over and she'd sleep on the couch. We told Tina everything. If it was any kind of therapy we're doing, stem cell therapy, hyperbaric therapy, we would talk about anything we were doing. We didn't keep any secrets about the care of our daughter from Tina. One time Tina needed help fixing her car, and my wife Dana, loaned her $400. And we thought, well, if she doesn't have a car, she can't get to work. That's a horrible, horrible way. All those are good intentions, but that's ignorant, naive, and that's dangerous. Never do that. Learn from our mistakes. What happened eventually, at some point, we were getting tons of CPS complaints over random stuff. It was like little random stuff. We were getting CPS complaints. I say random stuff because they weren't, to me, significant. Like one was that my daughter was too bouncy in the back of the van. Well, she was. We have a 15-passenger van. She was very bouncy, but I don't feel like that would warrant a CPS complaint. That's an example. And that was actually the most justified of the complaints. One was that I was too domineering with my wife. And I was like, I'm too domineering with my wife. And then I thought, the only person I know that's dumb enough to go to CPS with that complaint was this attendant we had that had autism. And I said, that attendant idolized Tina. The only way she would have done that is if Tina put her up to it. And as we looked into it, that's exactly what was happening. So this nurse that we had loved, thought was amazing, she was getting everybody. The one who popped the glove, she called CPS as well over some other kind of nonsense things. That nurse, Tina, was getting everyone to call CPS on us. I don't know her master plan. Was it to get custody of our daughter? I don't know what she was doing. But it was a tremendous amount of pain and frustration that we went through over that. And again, it's from letting our guard down and not having a professional environment. So quickly, I'll go over a few things. Number one, I would just say it's just boundaries. Just keep boundaries. So even though it's your home, you can't think about it as your home. Think about it as a professional medical workplace. So if you went to a doctor's office for a visit, think about all the things you would and would not do. Your children wouldn't run up and down the hallways. You wouldn't argue with your spouse. You wouldn't tell the doctor personal information about you, your family, your finances, your medical history. There's a lot of things you wouldn't do. And that's how you should treat that workspace and the interaction with your home health nurses. I know it's kind of counterintuitive because you think, oh, you're a nice person. Well, Tina was a nice person. Tammy was a nice person. Well, the one that popped the glove, whatever name I used, she wasn't a nice person. But the one who brought her daughter, she was actually a nice person. If you can, besides evil, maniacal, manipulative, except for that part, she was nice. The other thing is just conversations, which I kind of mentioned, is just only have professional conversations. Don't discuss pay. I used to think, well, why does it matter? Don't discuss pay. Don't have any non-professional conversations with your nurses. And responsibilities, your nurse should only, she should only feel and should only be asked to provide the plan of care. So nothing beyond the plan of care. If you ask for those things, it makes them uncomfortable. It puts them in a kind of an ethics kind of situation if you're asking them to do something that's not part of the plan of care. So always, never expect them to follow anything besides the plan of care. Definitely don't ask them to clean something they shouldn't have to clean. Don't ask them to watch your children. They have a very limited role. It's specific and only expect them to follow that plan of care. And then finally, this is one, my natural tendency was to be loyal to the nurses and to not trust the home health agencies. Flip that. Be open and transparent with the home health agency and keep your nurses at arm's distance, arm's reach. The home health agency, they're the ones that are trained. It's in their best interest to keep you and the nurse together. The nurse, it doesn't matter to her if she's with you or not with her. She's getting 30 emails a day asking her to leave you. So the people who can support you, that is the home health agency. If there's a question about schedules, if your nurse says, hey, I really want this schedule changed, don't talk to the nurse about it. Talk to the home health agency. That's their job, that's their role, that's their expertise, that's where their training and experience is. So use the home health agency. That's the resource. Trust them more. Communicate with them. Be open with them. And I think we're over time, so I'll just stop. But again, I encourage you, the next section is about conflict resolution, and it's about communicating and making systems to communicate. So just in a nutshell, I have to say it really quickly because you need to know. Make a time where your nurses can communicate with you. So I would say a bi-weekly meeting or bi-weekly phone call where nurses can communicate. I would encourage that. And then again, just conflict resolution stuff. It's on the website. It's a free downloadable book. So I encourage you to take a look at it, to browse through it. And again, if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to meet with you. We can just talk in the evenings and just kind of help you see what you can adjust. But essentially, we're the ones that have to change Nurses aren't going to change. The nursing shortage isn't going to change, but we can change. So that's really what you need to do, is to protect your family. And again, the first part's on safety. So I talk about how to protect your family. We've experienced everything you can think of, unfortunately. So any questions before we? All right, well, thanks for showing up. I guess we're going to go to the next session.
Thank you.
Yeah.